I'm going to start with one or two to get things going. What kind of software would you recommend that we use to synthesize and pull these in together and sort of make some sense and plug it back into our website to surface in a meaningful way for a customer when we're upselling? Sort of really quickly, some of the softwares you guys are using or would recommend or have used in the past.
I've got the mic, so I guess I'm starting. We actually build a lot of the systems in-house at Net-a-Porter. So we have a tech team of over, I think it's about 250 people. So a lot of the kind of databases and ways that we're storing information we've built on our own. And then we do have plugins. So we do use a service called Salesforce for our customer care team so that they're able to get this information that we already hold on our customers and be able to get it there and then, so they can then use that information to understand exactly who they're talking to and what the best recommendations for these people would be.
Okay, very similar at Vistaprint. We actually haven't found an external software that we can use that suits our need. We're actually building this internally. There's a gentleman in the back of the room here who's nodding in the back there, who's actually responsible for this, including building a lot of the algorithms. So this is a core competency that we have in-house. We're a very, very data-driven company, and we believe connecting all the dots to make this holistic approach is something that we've needed to build in-house.
Thank you. I've got to say, obviously, from a WebTrends point of view, that's what we do. We provide software solutions. But instead of providing a complete platform for everything and one size fits all, we actually believe that data is the most important part of the equation. And so we are probably an important cog in a data infrastructure which uses many other systems such as Salesforce, or it could be SAP, or whatever it might be. So it's being able to have a mix and match of the right kind of software solutions. I don't think any vendor can deliver the total solution for each individual supplier. Purely and simply, there's just so many combinations that's out there. We just believe as long as you're capturing the data, being able to manipulate that data and drive that to drive a much more customized personal experience, then it doesn't matter as long as you're collecting that data.
Thank you. What about questions from the room? Anyone want to have a first go? Gentleman in the back?
Yeah, sure. So you've all talked about using data to do like personalised ads that might follow people around between devices. And do you think there would be a point where users are like, oh damn, I'm being followed around by these adverts, I'm kind of feeling a bit claustrophobic, like this dress is following me around everywhere. I just want to kind of see the options again.
So I think you're absolutely right. There is that feeling in the market today that kind of following of an ad every time you go onto another page, there's a, oh my God, there's that watch or whatever it was I was looking at. It does get to a point where you get to the point of saying, actually, that's too much. But I think marketers are being cognizant of that fact and are looking sympathetically at being able to be more subtle in how they approach that. And generally speaking, when a customer comes to you and engages with you, is the time to really be driving that personalisation, not just by blandly handing out adverts.
So I think the very issue you're talking about has existed for a long time, and I think the way that we have dealt with it is by making it not only more relevant, but I think more timely. So when you talk about being chased around the internet, you've seen something, or you've checked something on a website and then follows you. If you're seeing that 100 times on 20 different websites over the course of the next 6 hours, it's going to be very, very annoying. So we have worked out what should be the frequency and the recency capping around that, where it's actually useful to the customer, relevant as opposed to an annoyance.
I also think it's really important to sort of differentiate between the sort of advertising part of this and the upselling. So for instance, when you're on a brand's website, you're in that experience, you're wanting to look at that brand's different things. So it makes sense to be using that data to showcase different things whilst they're in that environment. Then obviously, once they're off-site, it's a completely different scenario than you are in advertising. And similarly to what Tristan said, that if you are getting data back of how people are interacting, it's important to use that and not be inundating with people with something that they're not interested in.
Any other questions?
In terms of bringing people back when they abandon basket, email was the obvious way that we did that in the past. How have you found things like remarketing and push notifications? Are they kind of becoming stronger channels going forward?
I'd definitely say that push is a really important channel for us, especially as it's driven through the app. And we see that our app has our most loyal customers. You know, they're very engaged with our brand. They're coming back on a regular basis. And push just gives you that opportunity to be able to communicate in such a timely way. Like as soon as something's relevant, you know it's going to go instantly on the person's screen and they're straight in. Email's still incredibly powerful for us as well. But again, it's making sure that you're personalising your emails and sending the right information to the right people.
So we find the same thing with email. It's still incredibly relevant for abandoned carts. And the other thing, it goes into someone's personal inbox as opposed to the bulk if you use Gmail. The other thing with retargeting, we find that works, but it can be very expensive unless you really get the frequency and the recency right. You know, one of the things that you can do is you can actually experience that on different sites to see how they retarget you. Amazon's a great example of this, where they'll never retarget you for more than 7 days and they frequency cap it. If you put a £1,000 item into your cart, they'll follow you a lot longer. So you can actually look at different companies, including Vistaprint, and you'll get a very good sense of how they manage that frequency and recency.
We've actually found that email does work very well still, but actually we've, with a particular airline in Europe, we found that people revisiting the site, just having a pop-up which was particular to them to say actually that you forgot to put this or here's your flight, and having that ability either through email or on the website to click back to their booking in its entirety so they don't have to put in the hotel or anything like that. We saw a 400% uplift in this particular company. So we know it works. We know people who are interested in being able to follow a journey, excuse the pun, are actually being able to say, actually, if I don't have to go through all of that, not only the fact that they saw a 400% uplift in people coming back and buying what was in the basket, they also saw a 20% uplift in the sales as well, because they had more time online to be able to look at things like hire car and hotels and things like that. So we think the abandoned basket, for whatever you call it, is a really powerful way of getting people to upsell.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got time for a few more questions. Also, again, I'd like to remind you, if you want to do a tweet, if you do include hashtag Campus London, the tweet will appear on that screen. And if you're lucky, it can trend throughout the whole day. So feel free to comment on what's being said, or disagree, or agree. Final questions. We've got time for 2 more, I think. I have a few more myself. Anyone? So, in terms of we've obviously talked about your companies and what you've done. Have you seen anything as a customer, maybe yourself, or attending industry conferences, or kind of consuming general best practices? Is there a company out there that you kind of look to as a go-to role model that gets this really right? Any examples?
I think everybody would agree that Amazon is probably doing it more right than everybody else at the moment, because they've actually got great experience in being able to do this. They've got fantastic recommendation engines, they track and cap things very, very well. And I think everybody that I speak to actually uses them as the kind of the go-to standard, because it is so prevalent across everybody and all of our type of purchases. But I think there's many more companies out there that are just doing fantastic stuff. I try to dedicate at least 2 hours of my week just searching around, finding what other companies are doing, how they're experiencing, what tags they might be using on their website, all those type of things, to be able to give me an insight into what people are doing that are great stuff and what are big things that are doing that are just average. So Amazon for me is the number one still, but I know there's hundreds of other players that are actually taking personalisation and contextual personalisation really to their hearts and minds. I could. So, for instance, if you look at KLM, which is the airline I just talked about, KLM is doing a particularly good job of being able to do those sorts of things. We're bound by a couple of non-disclosures of other things that we might be doing, but I think that there's companies, if you were to say, in the banking world particularly, it's amazing what some of these banks are doing. Some of it is pretty obvious and some of it is not so obvious, but the experience you're getting is actually much more tailored to what you do online now than just being able to go through and have a banking app or a banking website. And I can't give you their names, but they're pretty prevalent around the whole of Europe.
So without a doubt, Amazon, I think they're the real stalwart, and I think that just through navigating their site, whether you buy something or not, or doing both, and actually seeing what happens to you during that purchase path and post-purchase. They do a phenomenal job. The other area that I would look at is the travel industry. So companies that come to mind are Booking.com, Expedia. They have a product where once they know that a customer is interested in a flight or a hotel, it's perishable. So they've got inventory issues, they've got the fact that customers in the process of booking. So when I talk about recency and frequency, as soon as they know that you're engaged with wanting a hotel in Istanbul, you'll see that online, within a matter of minutes once you leave their site. So that's just one of the things, but there's many things that the travel sector, I think, that we can learn from, because it's a highly competitive industry where they're competing for people at that point who have a particular need, that if they don't capture that demand, then they're probably going to go to someone else.
Because I work in mobile, I spend a lot of time playing on other people's apps and other people's mobile sites. So the ones that spring to mind for me are the ones that I kind of engage with and I go back to time and time again. And a lot of that has to do with the communication and the timeliness of the communication. So there's things like, we've mentioned the travel industry, but things like BA, obviously it's very service driven, so it's things like, your flight's about to open for check-in, check in now, do whatever you've got to do. So it's interesting, timely messages. And because they're helping you out and offering you a service, you then think of them again when you want to go and use them the next time. To go for a completely different industry, there's an app called House. It's actually a website as well. I don't know how many people are into their interiors. But they do a fantastic job of really having relevant content, and it's always very timely. It's kind of quite trend driven. There's always something interesting to read, so you go back in at the same time. A lot of the items that feature in the newsletter you can also buy. So it's about it's that much more subtle than, obviously you have got the big players like Amazon. They've got their algorithms and they've got their offers and they've got their things coming to you time and time again. But coming to it from a different perspective, I like the people that are less obvious, that you're actually engaging with and not really even realising that you're being encouraged to come back time and time again.
We've got time for one final, maybe two questions.
Yeah, mine is more maybe comments. So I agree with you about Amazon, as I'm an Amazon customer, so obviously I enjoy buying on Amazon. But it's also true that their model is not sustainable. In fact, you know that from a profit perspective, the cost of delivering from Amazon becomes a very high chunk of the overall cost. That's the reason why they are now trying to go delivering multi-channel. And in fact, other retailers like Macy that have point of sales, real point of sales, are ramping up in terms of omni-channel commerce. So my question maybe is more from the profit. Are you thinking about multi-delivery option in the future, or you believe your business will continue to stay just online and will be sustainable in the long term?
Okay, so in terms of the sort of staying online, so Net-a-Porter started as the first online retailer to sell luxury fashion. That's what we know about. That's what we're kind of experts in. So that our focus is in the online business, but it's actually just being able to keep up with trends and also keep up with the expectation from your customer. We've already seen, like, in the 15 years that we've existed, the delivery options are just completely different now from what they were right at the beginning. And you just have to make sure that, if your customer expects to receive something in 24 hours, you have to have that option. You can't really become complacent. And I'm sure there'll become a time where that becomes even more specific. And when there's drones, it might be that we have to deliver to a person like wherever they are within a certain amount of time. But it really is just keeping up with, when you've got competition and other people are offering a service, you can't afford to, offer something that's not as good as another retailer.
Mindful of time, and last question.
Just so clearly, we've sort of worked on what to offer the customer. How important is it to offer something that's linked to what's in their basket? So the letterheads that are looking the same, or the clutch that works with the dress versus something completely different that you think would suit that customer. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's critical. And it's not always so obvious. So you can look at many different things and test into different things. So it might be might be a related product, or it could be what a sample of similar customers typically buy as their second item. So what we look at is a lot of what the customer has purchased and other customers, the second most likely product that they would order. So there are many, many variations of that, and at the end of the day, the best scenario has to trump and show up as the most prominent additional offer, but it's critical.
And I'd agree, because a lot of the time our customers are shopping for not just items, but they're shopping for outfits. So it was like I mentioned before, that point on the purchase path, when you've got an option, they're looking for a dress, it's key to showing everything that could go with that dress. You've got this opportunity to show them all the different items, so why wouldn't you? So we have the kind of, what's specifically in that outfit, what other items are like this could also work, and then different outfit options. So they're all kind of key things that we have on that product page. Then once you've gone into the purchase path, we also have a thing called the candy aisle, which is smaller items that could actually enhance that purchase. So it might be the lipstick that goes with it, or the nail varnish that matches. So smaller things that are easy add-ons, just like you have a point of sale on a till in a store. It's the same thing but online.
The other thing is, actually, it depends upon how long people are on particular pages. So measuring the time that somebody's on a page will give you, or multiple pages, will give you an indication of how fast they are wanting to shop, because people shop either very quickly or they shop and they browse shop. If they're browse shopping, then you've got time to be able to put more slightly irrelevant products that are there, as opposed to trying to get into them with the quick purchase. But as long as you're monitoring the behaviour as well as being able to monitor the individual and got the data, you can then choose to be able to promote particular products based upon what type of customer they are at that particular time.
I think that's all the questions we have time for. We've run over slightly on time. So again, I'd like to thank the panelists for joining us today. Maybe a round of applause.